Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm really happy to tell you there are two women here with the title Collins Mom, me and Allison. I'm going to kick it off, and we'll hear from Allison in a couple minutes. I want to just share that early childhood education is really important to the Minnesota House DFL this session. We believe that all of our children deserve a great start in their lives. We know that Minnesota has one of the worst opportunity gaps in the nation, and we know that too many families are struggling to try to find affordable childcare. And that is why we have a proposal to make a significant investment in our children from birth to age 3. We know this is the most critical time in the development of a child's brain, and that we can have an incredible impact on a child's whole life if we invest in quality early learning opportunities. Additionally, we know that our families all across the state are really struggling to find affordable childcare. Our children are only young once, so if we take some of the one-time budget surplus and invest now, we'll have an impact on the rest of their lives, even if we can't sustain that funding and make that commitment this year going into the future. When we have a one-time non-recurring surplus is the time to think about investing in our littlest learners. With that, I'd like to introduce the Majority Leader.
Good morning. Minnesota succeeds when we take care of our youngest citizens. And we have not been taking care of the youngest Minnesotans in a way that we should for too long a time. We have two crises at the same time. Childcare is unavailable or unaffordable throughout Minnesota, and we are having huge gaps between white children of the middle class and poor kids and kids of color in education. We cannot sustain a strong economy in the future, and we cannot live up to our obligations to Minnesota families if we allow this to continue. For too long, we've known what the solution is, but have been unable to bring the political will to make something happen on these issues. We are trying to do that this year using one-time funds from the state budget surplus to make a commitment and a down payment for Minnesota's future. If we do not act, whether you are from Little Falls or Eagle Lake or Minneapolis or St. Paul or Golden Valley, the future of our state is going to be harmed significantly, and families across the state are not going to be able to have children and support them like we would expect everyone to be able to do in this economy. So it's time for us to act, and I'm very excited to see all the advocates here and to see the support of so many people across the state, regardless of political party and geography, saying that putting our youngest kids first has to be our top priority.
Hello, State Representative Dave Pinto. I'm the chair of the House Early Childhood Finance and Policy Division, and so happy to be standing in support of this proposal. Research shows us that the biggest payoff comes in the earliest weeks and months of life, and that's birth to age 3, and that's exactly where we're investing. So some details about our proposal. There's $190 million for early learning scholarships aimed again at birth to 3, which will support approximately 25,000 children. We invest $190 million in child care assistance. This will help keep providers in business and able to continue accepting children from low-income families, and also provide support to bring in approximately 2,000 more children as well. Our child care providers take great care of our kids, often at poverty-level wages. Compensating them fairly will help make early care and learning more accessible and more affordable for families. We also invest $60 million in voluntary pre-K for next biennium. This will make the expiring slots of 4,000 slots permanent. We don't want to go backwards on our preschool funding, ensuring that 4,000 children will continue to receive school-based preschool. We invest $30 million in home visiting grants, critical services for families, and approximately $22 million for one-time provider supports, for provider of early care and learning, and $7.5 million for several points of system evaluation and regulatory reform. Investing in these areas will help our economy, ensuring parents can work, businesses can grow, and communities can thrive. These investments will help our youngest Minnesotans. They'll begin to close the opportunity gap and improve access and affordability for families. We've done plenty of talking about this problem, and now's the time to take action. And I want to turn things over to the author of House File 1 in this proposal, Representative Carly Katiza-Batum.
Good morning. As we know all too well, Minnesota suffers from one of the largest achievement gaps in the country, and this gap starts long before kindergarten. We all benefit when our kids get off to a great start, and if we're serious about closing this achievement gap, we need to start by passing legislation that invests in our youngest Minnesotans long before they set foot in a kindergarten classroom. This bill that we're bringing to the table not only supports our pre-K students, but also extends a helping hand to the families who are struggling to build up the economic security that their children deserve.
Good morning, everyone. Representative Rena Moran. You know, it really is unconscionable that Minnesota children of color have such a persistent opportunity gap which prevents them from reaching their full potential both in the classroom and in life. All of us have the responsibility to push bold solutions to transform the way we educate, the way we nurture, and for the care of our earliest learners. I'm committed to solutions like the Great Star Act and its investment to help ensure that all children can have a bright future from cradle to career.
Allison or Karen? Karen.
Come on up. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Karen DeVos. I am the owner, director, occasional preschool teacher in a very small center in a very small rural community, Ada, Minnesota. We are actually working on also getting a site started in Halstead, Minnesota, which is even smaller than Ada, so that's super exciting. We are located in a nursing home, so we're one of those unique programs that offers intergenerational care. We have day-to-day activities with grandmas and grandpas and really are enriching the lives of not only our children, but the senior citizens in our community as well. I am so excited to be here today. I could talk about every single one of the pieces of this legislation with passion, but I'm not going to because they said I have 2 minutes. I'm hoping it's not an Oscar thing where they like pull me away. So what I want to talk about is, we'll see. What I want to talk about is childcare assistance because that is really directly impacting the decisions that we make moving forward for our new site that we're opening, as well as what we've got going on in Ada. We currently only have 4 infant spots in our center in Ada because we can't afford to do any more than that. It is too expensive to care for infants. In Norman County, the reimbursement rate is $168 a week. Yeah. Right? Did everybody just pause for a second? Imagine trying to run a full program on that rate. You couldn't do it. The teachers would not be getting paid. We would not be able to pay insurance. It's not possible. Currently, our infant spots in our Ada Center are booked through September of 2021. That is normal. We have the opportunity to open up 8 infant spots and 14 toddler spots in the Halstead facility, which will also be located in a nursing home. With the rates where they are with child care assistance right now, that's not going to happen. We are actually only opening a summer school-age program for the time being. The community supports it. We have the children available to add in 22 new infant toddler spots. We have the support of the community behind us, but we don't have the money to be able to do it because a lot of these kids are going to be high-risk children from low-income families who are going to be utilizing child care assistance, and the money isn't there. This investment in child care assistance is huge. It means that we can just a little bit of, in Halstead, there are 2 family child care providers. That means 4 spots under the age of 2. We can move that to 22. That's huge. That's huge. But we can't do it without the money. So if we can see this money go in, we can make some huge changes in that community, not just for the lives of the children and families, but also for the seniors in those communities. So I'm super excited about that. It also makes a big difference for our workforce, which is really important. We know that our teachers do not get paid enough, and somebody else will talk a little bit more about that. I really believe that we have an opportunity in Minnesota to show that we believe in children. I believe that we have an opportunity in Minnesota to show that we believe in the early childhood workforce. It has been far too long that we have stood back and let somebody else try to do the work. And today we have an opportunity to step here and just say, you know what? I believe in Minnesota. I believe in our children. I believe in our workforce. And we are going to get this done. Today is the day it's going to happen. I really believe that. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Allison Petrie, and this is Colin Petrie, P-E-T-R-I. Thank you, House Leadership, for inviting me here today. My name is Allison, and I live in Plymouth with my husband, John, and our 3 sons, the youngest of which is Colin, our kindergartner. In the spring of 2018, I was just a busy mom with a full-time career in education, 3 kids at home, and a husband who was working full-time as well. With all that I had going on, I'm sure I failed to notice a lot of things. But the big one I was missing was that my Marine Corps veteran husband was struggling. He was deeply struggling with his service-connected PTSD, and with the reality was that there's no easy fix to that. He needed to take some time away from his job and the busyness of family life to seek care. And as parents, we had to figure out how to cover our expenses on my income alone. You can only cut so much. And a cut we considered taking was removing Colin from full-time preschool. As an educator, I know a high-quality early childhood education is a critical component to success in kindergarten. Yet, it was costing our family as much as it would to send him to the University of Minnesota. But there are differences for families struggling to afford college versus preschool. First off, college kids can work to cover some of their costs. Preschoolers can't. Look at him. He is very cute, but he is lacking some skills and some height to make him a valuable asset in the workforce at this point. The second big difference is college kids can also earn a whole variety of scholarships to fund their education. Lucky for us, qualifying families can be awarded scholarships through the Minnesota Early Learning Scholarship Program. I applied for the scholarship, knowing that if awarded, our family would be able to do what was best for all family members. When awarded the scholarship, Colin was able to stay in preschool, which was important for both his learning and maintaining stability while his dad was away. My husband was able to receive the care he needed at the VA, and I was able to stay on track with my career as well. With the excellent preschool education Colin received, he is thriving in kindergarten. He has just learned to read, loves music and math, and I am told he is the best helper in his class. He is full of potential, and when asked what he wants to be, when he grows up, his answers include a United States Marine, a dad, a senator, and a ninja.
All of those things together would be awesome.
I think so too. After today, I'm sure he'll add state representative to that list. It's just ever growing. We love it. I do know that he wouldn't be as successful as he is without all of the education he received long before he even stepped into his kindergarten classroom. The value of a Minnesota Early Learning Scholarship is access to life-changing educational opportunity for each child and family awarded. This bill seeks to extend that opportunity to more Minnesota children just like Colin. So I thank you from myself and my family for all your efforts on behalf of Minnesota's youngest learners. All right, can you hop down?
Right. Good job, Colin.
I'm Karin Swenson, K-A-R-I-N-S-W-E-N-S-O-N. I've been in early childhood for 30 years. I run a program in Rochester, Minnesota, a very small little nonprofit. My experience is those 30 years running a nonprofit and doing a lot of networking with professionals around the state over time. I think I'm here, and I know I'm here, as a voice for many when I say we need to create a much more comprehensive early childhood education system in this state. We need reform focused primarily on improving access and, of course, affordability for families. But I believe that there's a lot more to this. We are struggling with workforce. Workforce is difficult. I believe this is the biggest elephant in the room. If we do not have staff, if we do not have quality staff, we don't have a system. We do not have a system. An article I was just reading again, and it really put a piece in that made me really think. And I'm going to say it here. Here's the quote. It says, "Early care and education is substantially funded through low teacher pay and inadequate supports for early education teachers who are primarily women." Okay? Low teacher pay is supporting the system. Okay? This truly is an injustice. It really is. This lack of adequate financial and professional supports for our staff that are supporting your young children. Now is the time for policymakers and other stakeholders here in the state of Minnesota to have that opportunity right now to change that status quo that's happening, to ensure that Minnesota's earliest learners are getting what they deserve. We need to seriously look at a high-quality, comprehensive system that does not financially overburden Minnesota's parents, but actually does not come at the expense of the people that are doing the job and that are there out in the trenches. The workforce is a crisis. It truly is here in the state. If you look at the public school teacher shortages, there was a need to raise salaries to get people into the profession. I believe the challenge is even greater in early childhood. In this tightening job market that we have, I believe that one of the biggest issues is our inability to be able to offer a fair wage, a competitive wage, and benefits. I look at myself. I've been in my job for almost, the current job that I'm in, for almost 30 years. I have no insurance that is supported by my organization. We're a nonprofit. 85% of our budget goes to pay my staff. 85% of my budget. So there's nobody that is benefiting, from our budget. There isn't, other than the children, of course. We really need to look at how we can boost wages for these people that are doing that hard work, okay? It is common to hear also in our part of the state, and I've heard it from other parts of the state too, that we can't find people. We cannot find people to come in and do the work. It's hard, and it's hard to find people that are willing to work at those wages and then do all the good things that we need to do for children at that time. So, as I said, 85% of my budget pays my staff. I have 11 staff. Of my 11 staff, I have 7 that are qualified teachers. Of those qualified teachers, I have 4 people with a master's degree. I do 2 in education. And the median average teacher wage in my center is $14.66 an hour. You've probably heard this before. Dog walkers, parking lot attendants make more money than we do. I pay nearly $1,000 a year for my own health insurance. Okay? That's over a third of what I make. I'm single. I don't have a family. That's how I can do this. That's how I can do this. Okay? We cannot attract and retain highly skilled teachers on wages this low and with no benefits. The poverty rate for early educators in Minnesota, and I checked this out to make sure I'm quoting, 18.8% more, the poverty rate is, more than twice as high as for Minnesota workers in general. That's sad. Insufficient financial and professional supports for teachers compromise that stable care that we're trying to do for children. Yesterday, I spoke to Stacy York. She runs the child development program out at Rochester Community College, and they have seen, and we try to attract people from their program. Not too many years ago, she averaged about 125 in her program. Right now, she's lucky if she can get 25. So there's nobody that's going into the workforce from the education side, too. This is a crisis, okay? She also said that we need to really look at, we have a 2-tiered system right now. We have those that are undereducated going into early childhood, and we also have those that are educated, but they're not together and working in early childhood. So we need to do what's right. We need to fix this portion also. Yes, you can put money into all of the 190 million for this and 190 million for that, but yet you also need to look at the workforce that's doing the job. And it doesn't matter if you fund the whole childcare system if you don't have the workforce to do the good work. Thank you.
And we're ready for your questions.
Do you have Republican authors? Do you have Senate authors? What's the path?
So we are in great conversation with Republican senators. As we know, this is a crisis. These two crises are throughout the state. And we've been hearing, I know that our Republican colleagues in the Senate have been hearing from constituents, from parents who are not able to find accessible, affordable care, from businesses that can't expand, from communities. So we are expecting, I mean, there's many ways in which the Child Care Assistance Program is actually quite supportive of child care and early care and learning in Greater Minnesota. We know that they've had a lot of positive things to say about early learning scholarships through the years. Each of the pieces of this proposal, for the most part, are aspects that there should be great support with the Senate. So we're in conversation and certainly hoping that we'll be able to land this plane and have some real strong support here.
And any Republican co-authors?
So
in
no
the House?
co-authors in the House at this point, but would certainly welcome them.
You're talking about one-time spending, is that right? I think that the speaker alluded to that. What does that do to the folks in Halstead if they get the money and they can open up their center, or what does that do to the next person like Allison who's in a bind a couple of years from now?
Well, right. I mean, it certainly does a lot more than not spending the money now, right? I mean, so the issue is right now we have rates are set incredibly low when it comes to child care assistance. And we know that there are kids who are looking for and families who need this support right now. And so the thought is let's invest this money that is available right now to increase rates to provide care for kids. I would certainly hope that in future sessions we will continue to provide that support. But we know we have this funding now. The kids are this age now, and the families have this need now. And yeah, we should continue that. Madam Speaker.
And I'll speak to that a little bit. You know, we are looking for areas where one-time money can go in and make a difference. There are elements of this plan where certainly it would require an ongoing commitment. We're not going to propose to increase a pay rate and then to cut it later. But when you look at the opportunity in Colin's life, right? Colin was only 3 once. And if we have an opportunity to provide a scholarship to Colin's family when he's 3, or to have a rainy day reserve that's more healthy than what we need for our state budget, I think it's worth it for us to give Colin's family the scholarship he needs to get that care, that high-quality preschool experience when he's 3, because he's only 3 once. And while we'll be looking for the details of the budget forecast when it comes out for recurring hopes of recurring revenue, we're really focused on how we can best utilize the $1.3 billion one-time money. And I think it'll be a bit of a persuasion job ahead of me to convince the Senate Majority Leader and the Governor that we need to make a commitment in this area. It's very tempting to just look out into the future and say we need to have this substantial reserve in the event of a future downturn. But what we know is there's a bunch of 3-year-old Minnesotans who can benefit right now. And we don't know if there's a downturn. We do know that we have healthy reserves. So there's a balance to be struck there.
Is this a spot where you miss Governor Dayton?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that. I mean, you know,
It's really the biggest issue that he leaned into over all 8 years, honestly. You said you have work to do with the current governor on it.
there's really 2 legacy issues that Governor Dayton left for us in this area. One, his commitment to our littlest learners, unquestionable, but also his commitment to the fiscal integrity of the state. You know, when he came in 2011, he had a mountainous deficit, and he worked over the entire 8 years of his term to make sure that we were in this position that we're in now, in excess of $2 billion in reserve. So the reason I can even stand here in front of you and talk about spending some of the non-recurring surplus on children like Colin is because Governor Dayton socked away that money, and we are in good shape. So as we look at the reserves that we've got money-wise, we have to look at the reserves that we have in terms of human capital and make sure we're investing in that as well.
Can I just add one thing? The Walz administration, the Walz-Flanagan administration, has been very committed to the child care assistance program, especially the lieutenant governor. They certainly care very deeply about education, and we have no reason to think that a proposal that includes CCAP scholarships and support for local child care needs is something that would be in any way something that they don't support. What we're trying to do is create an option that Senate Republicans and House Democrats and the governor can all get on board with, because we see this as an opportunity and we want to make sure we're not missing it.
But you have a governor who's a former teacher that you have to do some convincing on. Are you
I don't think so.
surprised that, well, the speaker just said she did.
Well, in terms of the spending, right? And so we have a Senate Republican caucus that's proposing significant ongoing spending. And we have a governor that's saying, like, folks, let's wait and see. Let's be really fiscally responsible here. Let's not get out over our skis and make commitments that we can't sustain into the future. And that is an entirely appropriate and responsible position. And we'll see after the budget forecast where we can land on making investments like this.
So a good forecast is a good outcome for this. Do you feel like you need a little more money to help persuade?
You know, I was in Israel when the last forecast came out, so this guy is probably the expert on that. But I think if the forecast is similar to what we saw in November, that we should be able to do what we're proposing here.
Can you talk a little bit about the reforms in the bill? Won't you need changes in oversight of CCAP program to win any Republican support?
Well, my goodness, we just had a hearing this morning on CCAP program oversight. Had many changes that were enacted into law last session. Again, we just reviewed them this morning. The department itself has had a continuous improvement process that I think has been very impressive. I'll note, per Senate Republican, Senator Abler was quoted as saying he was extremely impressed, I think was the phrase that he used, with that process. So in our view, you know, that work, a lot of that work was done last session, and now is the time to make investments in the program, and we're hopeful that our colleagues will agree with that as well.
Was there a question about the reimbursement rate that the lady from Ada mentioned, $168 a month?
A week.
Or a week, I'm sorry, a week, excuse me, really bad. What would work, do you think? I mean, do you have a target figure at all, or?
Well, we're investing $190 million in this bill, of which $170 million will be going to rates. The way this works is that there's a survey that's done of child care providers, and then rates are set based on that survey. Right now, the rates are set at the 25th percentile in that list of providers from 2011. So from now 9 years ago. So if you think about trying to deal with your own economic situation from 9 years ago and being paid based on that in the 25th percentile, that does not work. So the thought is we have the one-time funds, we're going to invest the best we can. We'll have to see what rate that puts us at. It's a little bit complicated calculation. But then certainly going forward, as you heard from our speakers, we need to compensate the people who do this most critical work. We need to compensate them fairly. And we're not doing that right now, even as parents are really squeezed as well.
And the last thing I'd like to say about Republican support is the early childhood education scholarships are strongly supported by Minnesota's business community, and I strongly supported by a number of Republicans. So we're very hopeful. We chose this package and this issue in part because we do think that there's some potential for bipartisan agreement on this. I think it is a shared priority.
Is this all one bill?
Is House File 1.
House File 1.
It won't break up, there won't be an omnibus, you won't have omnibus bills this year, so you expect this would pass together?
That would be our hope.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.